Oh, John.
Yeah.
We have been, Bell, as of last week, started to post our videos that we're doing here, the presentations on our YouTube channel as well.
Okay.
Did you want a copy of those for you guys? Or?
Yeah, if you want to send that to me, and I can post it to our groups.
Sure. Yeah. So we can put a link for you. Can you do that, Bill?
Yeah. Yeah, just a link, and I can send it out for sure.
Yeah. It's a lot of great tips and education. So that's good.
After today's recording.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. This is our fourth one in the series for May. Yeah. So this will be May's complete. There we go. Time flies, eh, John? Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Next thing I know, it'll be August, and I don't want that.
Yeah. That's the importance of scheduling your fun, hey? That's one thing I've learned over the years is if you don't schedule your fun, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then fall comes and you're kind of depressed that summer's already over and you don't feel like you had a holiday or a break. Yeah. Yeah, it's important.
How would I access the YouTube? Where do I?
Bill, go ahead and answer that question. That's a great question, Cheryl.
Yes, I will be just send me an email and I'll be sending you the links to our presentation.
Excellent. Then I can stop when I can stop it and say, okay, so I lift my leg this way, and yeah.
Yeah, there you go. I'm the same way. It takes a while when we're learning something new, right? You have to sort of, yeah, it's like trying to teach Blair computer stuff. I love the videos because I'll pause the video and go back and try to do something and then restart it, and yeah.
So how is everybody? How is Calgary? I keep hearing that you guys have the biggest number of COVID cases from all over the place.
Yeah, we're still the hotspot for Alberta, Calgary and Brooks. But yeah, they're working on containing it. They did announce a couple deaths yesterday, so I think it's 138 people now in Alberta passed away. And they are looking at starting phase 2 potentially June 19th. So massage will start then, Mariah, so that's exciting for you. But she said we might even start a week sooner if the numbers keep going down or they're controlled. So they are working hard to try and slow things down. And really it's up to the general public at this point now. If everyone's compliant to all the health restrictions, we should be okay. But it's the people that kind of get sloppy that are going to end up getting sick. And yeah. So
does everybody wear a mask downtown and when they go to places?
Yeah, that's being heavily encouraged. Like we mask up here in the office when we're dealing with patients, and generally, like John was saying, that if you're within less than 2 meters of somebody, you should probably mask up. Like when we're doing staff, one-on-one meetings and stuff like that, we'll kind of mask up and protect each other. And yeah, we've got lots of things going on in the office to protect everybody as well. Yeah. So lots of sanitation stations, lots of cleaning stations, and nothing is shared. Everything's single use. So and I always joke about my little adventure at Walmart. I went in and bought like 50 pillowcases, 50 pair of socks, and we'd get patients putting on fresh clinic socks and leaving their dirty shoes and socks at the front, and putting on masks and sanitizing their hands. And yeah, we're really trying hard to make sure it's a clean, safe environment for everybody.
Really increases your costs, eh?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so it's a tough time to run a business right now if you talk to any business people, because your expenses are going up and your revenue is capped just due to traffic that you're allowed to sort of have in your store. So, yeah.
Well, I've been passing you good words around about you.
Oh, great, Cheryl. That's good.
Yeah.
I appreciate any warm referral. And yeah, the great thing about doing tele-rehab is we can talk to anybody in Alberta. And I just got my BC license because there might be an opportunity for me to do tele-rehab with a couple different people there. I got some referrals from family members that want me to go chat with their family members. And there's a company that approached me a little while ago that said, get your license ready. We might be using you. So I thought, okay. So yeah.
That's excellent, Blair, because I was wondering about that. For example, here in BC, we have a different healthcare system. And I was wondering if I could put like your name in for BC.
Yeah. So I just got my license. No, it starts June 1st. That's the one thing I'll just let you know.
Okay.
It took a little while to kind of get it all organized, but they said you're ready to go as of June 1st. So next Monday, I can officially start doing tele-rehab for clients that are in BC. We have some people too that are kind of semi-retired and they have a place in Kelowna or whatever, and they have a place in Calgary. So yeah, it just works out really good just to get the license and give us some flexibility that way.
That is super good news.
Yeah, so if you guys ever need some help, I'm only a phone call away now.
That's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really exciting.
Okay, Blair, I think we
Yep.
can start now.
I'll be quiet now. I'm going to mute myself. Enjoy, you guys. Got two amazing presenters here.
Oh,
And if you're wondering what the weather's like in Calgary, you can just look at John. He's on his patio today. So that's a good sign.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
enjoy, guys.
I wish the sun disappeared on me. But
Uh-oh. Hope it'll come back.
Okay, guys, so we are going to start now. And thank you for coming for today's presentation. And this is our fourth Tuesday of our Journey to Better Health series of May. And as we welcome John and Mariah, I don't need to introduce them anymore because I see familiar faces from last time. Okay, so I'm giving the floor now to, who's presenting first, John or Mariah? I forgot to ask.
No worries, I can go. That's perfect.
Okay, Mariah.
yeah, so I said I muted myself, but yeah, Mariah, please go first. I'd love to see
I
this.
got this. Thanks so much. So good morning, everybody. It's so nice again to see so many familiar faces. So today we're going to talk a little bit about those persistent pains, kind of the way that those develop, the way that they hit your muscle physiology, and the way that we can kind of interrupt that and really stop that process from ever getting to that point where you have that knot that's been there for 2-3 weeks and don't know where it came from. So right off the bat, I really want to go over how a muscle gets into a knot in the first place. So your muscles, they don't tie themselves up like ropes. You don't think of them like a big muscle belly that gets knotted up kind of like an overhand knot. It's not the case. What actually happens is you have these little muscle fibers. Think of them like little noodles that stack alongside each other and kind of intertwine. So what happens when you have a knot that develops is the muscle fibers that normally kind of mesh like this, they stop meshing and they start pulling on each other. So that's what happens when those muscles get kind of shortened and contracted. So what happens to further that and get into a knot is it starts to pull on its friends in the surrounding muscle tissue, and it turns into kind of like a taut band that then will get a knob on it that becomes that knot that, you know, your shoulder blade pops over, or, you know, your pants rest on and you just can't quite get it to release. So what happens further then is once that knot has happened, the layers of surrounding tissue, think the muscle that goes over top of that one, the fascia on top of that, the skin surrounding, the fat surrounding, they're normally supposed to lie kind of like lasagna, all individual flavors of each other that lie one on top of another, but still distinct. But what happens when you get a knot is they start to kind of stitch into each other, and you'll have those layers that start to slide, and normally they slide one on top of another, but they'll move as a unit, and they're not really supposed to do that. So that's when you have the knot that really starts to become a problem in your body. You know, you'll feel it pull in your foot when you go to take a step or extend the calf. And that's really where I see those persistent knots starting to take a toll on the average individual. So that really starts to happen in our bodies when we do things like sitting for a prolonged period of time, or consistently doing repetitive movements like crossing one leg over the other, all consistently, always right over left, right? So what happens there is you'll have those lasagna layers that are normally, you know, consistently separate from each other and moving on top of each other. They start to kind of get stitched together, and you lose the space in between that normally has things like fluid and blood, and it helps clean out the excess grossness from after your workout. So then the muscle gets kind of stuck in its own grossness, and you kind of perpetuate the problem by allowing it to rest in one position for a prolonged period of time. So things like dehydration, psychological stress, like our emotional stress, it takes a toll on the way that our body develops these knots. So what we can really do to interrupt that is pay attention to our diet, make sure that we're getting enough of our daily recommended nutrients, our daily recommended water intake, and trying to take a couple of minutes to just relax and work on ourselves. So these knots that develop in our daily life, the ones that really take a toll on us, they kind of come in 3 ways. you'll have them come up from an injury. So think like you go to do something, you ask something of your muscle that is a little bit more than it's consistently used to, and it'll stretch or tear to just kind of make it happen for you. Just think, keep the joint stable, we'll make it happen for you for now, and then you feel it for a couple of days, even weeks, months afterwards, that the muscle is just not happy. It feels unstable, sore, or tight. So that will work itself up into a knot or a taut band of tissue in the surrounding areas over a period of time. Another way that these pop up is things like repetitive movements. So again, crossing the leg over the other, or always sleeping on one side, it shortens muscle belly. And then you end up with part of your body that your brain thinks should be shortened. And so you end up with these big imbalances, or it throws you out of whack. So that's things like repetitive movements and postural stuff, like always, the old wallet in your back pocket, it cranks your pelvis over, and then you have a trickle of effects that kind of go from there. So now that we've gotten all the the blurb over with, I want to get to the fun stuff. Now that you guys kind of understand the way that these muscles stitch into each other and get stuck, we're going to look at how to stop that and really fix it. So I'm going to show you today on my arm, just because it's nice and accessible, and really it can happen anywhere. So oftentimes I see people getting these knots in their calves from walking, the backs of their hamstrings, but anywhere that you find these guys, you can use the techniques I'm going to show you today. So I really want to stress that it's applied just about anywhere. You find a knot in your upper shoulder or in the palm of your hand. These techniques are really, really good for that. So what I'm going to show you today are two big techniques. They're versions of each other, and you can apply them in a lot of different ways. The first one is a static hold. So you're going to look at your joints, make sure they're in a nice straight line, and find the knot in your arm. It'll feel, again, kind of like a knob or a spot that feels just tighter than the rest of it. And I encourage you guys to kind of feel around. We've all been doing more scrolling and typing in the last little while. I'm sure you got some knots in there. So I have one oftentimes just up on the inside of my elbow, closer to my body. And I find that bad boy. And once you find it, you'll feel that it kind of, when you move it, it pulls on the surrounding tissue. So I encourage you to kind of pull on it and find the spot that feels the most tight. So once you've gotten to that point, we're just going to take a nice static pressure and apply it into the tightest point of that muscle. So this is why that straight joint is really important, because we're going to make sure that when we put that pressure through, your joints aren't going to wobble or put extra stress through your opposite hand. So we're going to hold this nice static pressure for about 10 to 15 seconds, or until that muscle relaxes. And once you get to that 10-15 second mark, which is probably about now, you can slowly release that pressure. And then when you go to rub the muscle afterwards, you'll feel that it moves a little bit more, it's a little softer. And if not, you can repeat that technique, just static hold and release, about 3 to 5 times. And what that's doing is it's putting new blood in there to really get rid of all that junk that gets stuck up from our daily work, and kind of release and get things moving again. So that's one of my favorite first techniques that I'm going to show you guys. The second one is just another variation of the same concept. So we're going to think about that straight joint again. And now I'm going to flip my arm over, because I always have them on the back of my arm too. But you guys feel free to move on down into the leg and see if you can find something in the calf, because really honestly, there is always something in there. So kind of feel around and see if there's anything fun in there. I'm going to stay up here just for demonstration's sake. So we're going to find, again, another one of those big tight knobs in the tissue. I found one right here. And then once you've found the tissue knob, we're going to take that pressure again, straight joint. But this time, instead of having it be consistent static pressure, you're going to pump it. So the plan here is to pump in and out at a consistent depth and pressure in the tissue. So think kind of like pressing a button at the same speed and the same pressure over and over and over again. So we're going to do this, again, about 10 to 15 seconds long, just pumping that tissue. And it's the same idea. We're going to make sure that we're going to get new blood into the tissue, We're going to break up the spot where the muscle has stitched into its surrounding friends, and we're going to get it moving individually of itself. So that's been about 15 seconds, and already I can feel that there's new movement in my forearm from that muscle releasing. So now that we've gone over the two ideas of how we really get into the muscle fiber and make it move, I want to show you guys a couple of ways that you can integrate that or put it into your self-help or your self-love throughout the day. Okay, guys? So one of them is just massage. Taking a second to kind of wringing your arm or the leg. You'll find those little knobs of tissue, and just take a second and pump them. Or put some pressure into them nice and static. And then once you find it released, I want you to kind of move the tissue up and down as a unit. And that's gonna allow, as a whole, think about your whole leg, you're gonna get new blood in there. And then anything that was being held statically in the spot that you just released is gonna be moved around throughout the body. So that's one of the first ways that you can apply that. And then the other one is with my favorite, a foam roller. So it's self-massage with a toy, basically. The idea is that what you're gonna do is place the foam roller on a surface, and then you can pin the spot that is painful against the foam roller. So you're gonna do, instead of pushing with your joint down into your leg or your arm, you're gonna find the spot with the foam, push it down through the foam into the ground, just pinching it kind of against your bone and the foam, and static hold, and you're gonna pump your foot. So you're pinning it down, and then you're gonna move the surrounding muscle. So you can see that I'm getting a little bit of a shake in my foot. It's because I've got a big bad knot on the back of my calf that I could take some time to work out. So if you really grab onto that bad boy and pin it, you can see that I take some of the shake out of my foot. So that is the second way, and my most absolute favorite way to use that pumping or the static hold technique. So thank you guys so much for listening to me today. Those are my really big, most favorite ways to work on those persistent knots. I'm so sorry that I went over so much physiology at the beginning there, but if you guys have any questions about the way that you apply these techniques into, say, a shoulder or a pec muscle, please feel free to give me a shout, because I would love to give you more detailed tips about each individual muscle area. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mariah. Okay. Okay, John, your turn.
Good morning, everybody. Today, to sort of round out our the series, we're going to be talking about physiologically how, you know, doing your walking program, the benefits, and sort of get into the nitty-gritty of the physiological of what's going on in your body. Okay, so obviously when you're doing your walking, there's a couple of things that we want to you have to understand is going on in your body. First of all, movement. So your joints articulate your skeleton, okay, and your muscles are what powers that articulation. Okay, so your muscles cross over at least one joint, and so when you move a joint, you have to understand that joints don't have a regular blood supply. Okay, they are their own little contained units. Okay, and at the end of each bone is cartilage. It's called hyaline cartilage, and that is meant to sort of prevent the bone from having any kind of abrasion on it. Okay, it's a slide. If you look at a chicken bone, when you take off, you know, the drumstick, and you look at the one end, and you see there's a shiny sort of end to that bone, that's the cartilage on there. Okay, now the other thing is that because it doesn't have a blood supply, it's a contained system. It's all sort of ligaments completely surround the joint capsule. Inside that joint is also fluid. Okay, now the fluid, again, that's the source of nutrients for the cartilage to keep everything going. And just like the joints, you have any moving parts in a car where the metal might move, you need some oil to sort of lubricate that sort of movement. Well, that's what your joint fluid does, okay? And it is also fully rich in nutrients for joint health, okay? So the more you actually move your joints, the more you have those bones articulating, the more the synovial membrane that's inside the joint produces this fluid, okay? And that fluid, so the more you move your joints, the healthier your joints will be, okay? So people with arthritis tend to have a wearing down of that cartilage, and also it becomes painful, so then they don't move as much, and then that's that vicious cycle where you don't lubricate the joint enough to get the nutrients into the joint, and then the joint sort of degrades, and then it doesn't move, and then it seizes up, okay? So doing these movements, all of the little bones in your foot, every single articulation between each of those bones is a joint, and the more you're moving them, the more those joints produce this synovial fluid that it provides lubrication, but also nutrients for the cartilage and the ends of your bones, so that they can maintain good health, okay? Anybody who's ever had an injury to that cartilage, I have in my left knee, I have a tibial plateau fracture when I was many years ago, about 20 years ago now. And so I pulverized the cartilage on one side of my knee joint, and it's all wispy, feathery appearance. So that's smooth. So sometimes if I get my knee in the wrong position, it catches that, and it's trying to tear that cartilage off the bone, and the bone doesn't like that, right? So it's very painful. But the more I move my knee, and the more I continually, stay active, and especially with a low impact activity like walking, that joint is able to produce more fluid, and it sort of heals a little bit. It won't completely heal the cartilage that's been torn, but it does provide enough nutrients to keep my joint from completely seizing up, and that I don't have the pain that I normally would if I just sort of let it be. Okay. Same thing if you have any arthritis in your toes, right, or your big toe. Those kind of joints, they have any kind of flexibility that you can, anytime you move a joint or you do this kind of stuff, that's producing fluid in each one of these joints that helps nourish it and sort of repair any damage, because again, the blood supply just doesn't get there. There's only a third of the blood supply, and it's usually on the outside of the joint capsule, okay? So that's joint health. Muscle health, again, the more you contract and relax a muscle, the more you have those movements, the more you actually free up those adhesions, right? They tend to build up no matter what you do, because you're doing little micro tears, and the collagen fibers lay down scar tissue. Oops, sorry, the wind's blowing my sunglasses off the table. But when you move your muscles, they actually help with your lymphatic system and your venous return system, okay? So your heart pumps blood to the farthest parts of your body. Your right big toe is the furthest part circulatory-wise from your heart, okay? And that's why people end up with gout in their right big toe, because it's the furthest point away, okay? But blood pressure, once you cross over that capillary bed, and the blood goes to feed and nourish the tissues, and then everything, the blood starts to come back. There is almost zero blood pressure in your veins, okay? So you need your muscles squeezing around your veins and your lymphatic vessels to help pump that stuff back up towards your heart, okay? So veins and lymphatic vessels just collect all of the fluid that gets out of the capillaries and into the tissues. It's called lymph, and they lead towards lymphatic chains, like behind your knee and in your hip, armpits, in your neck. Your lymph nodes that's what gets swollen when you have a cold, okay? And you have a major lymph chain along your spine, where your inferior vena cava and the big veins inside your torso are. And all of those veins and lymphatic vessels have valves in them that are one way. So the blood pushes up when the muscle contracts and the valve opens, and then when the muscle relaxes, the blood wants to go backwards, it shuts the valves, okay? And so using those muscles and contracting and relaxing them constantly, the more you're active, those muscles push all of that fluid and blood back to the heart. So you're actually improving the fluid flow in your body, okay? All of that metabolic waste that ends up in the lymph and in your venous blood, it helps get it back to the parts of the body that process those wastes, those metabolic wastes, like your liver, your kidneys, okay? Your lungs exchanging CO2 for oxygen, things like that. So moving your muscles actually will improve your overall fluid maintenance, how healthy your blood and your fluids are in your body, and also enable your other organs to process those materials so that you can get rid of what you don't need and to bring in more, the things that you do need to keep your muscles and your body healthy. So being active just by moving will change your overall health and well-being. Cardiovascularly, obviously, the more we can get our heart to pump, we're exercising our heart muscle, but also that pumping through our arteries. Our arteries are elastic and they're thick-walled, and they tend to expand and contract and contract. And think of anything that has that sort of elasticity to it. Think of it like a rubber band, okay? Because the rubber bands are obviously elastic because they're called elastics. But if you were to open a fresh bag of elastics and you took one band every morning, you stretched it, you pulled on it, and then at the end of the day, you also stretch it and pull it. But one elastic you don't touch. You don't remove it. You don't do anything with it. That elastic that you don't move for like a month will crack and tear the first time you use it, whereas the one that you use every day tends to keep that elastic component. So when your heart is pumping more, and that elastic component, you're actually maintaining the youthful elasticity of your arteries, okay, and your blood vessels. And so while your heart is always pumping from the moment you're born, putting that stress on the heart, on the cardiovascular system, can actually increase the amount of that stretch happening, and it clears out your plaques and waste, but it also keeps those things elastic so that they don't get any injuries inside the blood vessels. So being active, even just with walking, can greatly improve your cardiovascular system, like just the arteries alone, okay? The other thing is, as you get older, we were talking about the veins and the valves in your veins and your lymph nodes. Sometimes over time, those can sort of get stressed and those valves can sort of collapse or stop closing, and that's where we get a backflow of blood and stretching of those thin vein walls, and we call varicose veins, okay? Everybody gets them, some more than others. They can be a problem with people as you get older, because if blood is pooling in a vein and not moving, it'll tend to become stagnant and clot, and then that's where you get troubles with blood clots and things like that. They can be very painful, but they can also be very deadly and very dangerous. So, but constantly moving and having your muscles squeezing on those veins and keeping the blood moving through the valve system helps to reduce the risk of those varicosities, but also the blood clots sort of pooling up and becoming bigger and bigger. So just even, we talk about the old standby was 10,000 steps a day. I'm happy if I get 6,000 or 7,000 steps, right? Even if I go for a run. There's been days where I get 12,000 steps. But either way, all it is an indication of how much you're trying to keep moving during the day and sort of prevent what I'm doing, sitting on a couch for any great period of time, okay? And just sort of recently, like my wife and I have been staying outside. We've been using a treadmill and an exercise bike. We've been doing a running program on that. Now that it's nice out and the girls can join us on their scooters, we're going for runs outside. And it's amazing how even just a few weeks of sort of low activity, just 3 times a week, but sort of increasing slowly the amount of time we go for our run or for our walk, that we can go for a run now and we're like, wow, that's really easy. It doesn't take long for your body to sort of get back into the swing of things with your cardiovascular health. We're running and we're talking at the same time, and we finish our run. It's like, oh, we could have got another half an hour. Let's turn around and let's go back again, right? So it doesn't take much for your body to respond with those changes and that adaptation to be ready for activity. Okay, your muscles become less sore, more, less often. You're not getting the same sort of injuries. Obviously, if you have pain that persists for more than a couple of days in any kind of activity, that's your body telling you there's something that you got to take a look at. But just general muscle soreness tends to work itself out and go away as you stay active. And a good walking program, it allows for that. So that's really all I have for, we talk about any kind of movement of all your joints and your muscles and your cardiovascular system greatly improves your health. And it means that you can do funner things like sitting on your patio and having those happy hour cocktails because you earned that drink for the day, or that bowl of ice cream that everybody wants to have after dinner when all of a sudden dessert is back on the table because you've gone for your run or your walk. But that's basically some of the generic health benefits physiologically that you're going to see. And it's amazing how a little bit of exercise can make a big impact on your health. Thank you.
Thanks, John. So let's open the floor for question and answer.
I'll go first. I got a quick, question for Mariah. I'll let them go first. Go ahead.
I can read Melissa's question. Question for Mariah. The technique you demonstrated, is it used for the same method on your shoulders?
It sure is. So this beautiful bad boy here, you can place it on the ground, lay on it, and find the spot on your shoulder that is sore. You pin it down and just relax into it. Or if you can reach it, you can just go ahead on and reach on back, pin it, and pump it. So the only thing with the shoulders is if you're reaching back, we have a tendency to roll our shoulders in to be able to reach it. So I want to remind you to really crank your chest up and open before reaching back to try and grab onto that knot. Otherwise, you're going to shorten it and then try and relax it when you really, really want it to be as long as it's supposed to be, and then try and relax it. Does that cover the question? Awesome. Thank you.
Yes, Blair, your question.
Ready? Yeah. If you want, you can unmute everybody too. I think we can all sort of chat now. So great presentations, you guys. Like, I love how you take a scientific sort of knowledge and you broke it down into layman's terms. Like, that was really amazing. I like the analogy of the lasagna when Mariah was talking, and John did an awesome job on just sort of talking about the benefits of keeping walking. So my question is for John, actually. So John, I think John Stanton wrote a book about walking a few years ago, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Okay, and do you guys sell that like online on your store as well?
Yep, we have it online and in the store. Essentially, it came about as John started to get older and started to realize that we had a whole demographic of people that running just wasn't part of their options anymore. Yeah. And walking, especially with the interval system that we have, just like our running, can actually have the same benefits of running. Obviously, you don't burn as many calories because the intensity level is down, but just the activity level alone can show great results. So yeah, so we have our walking book is essentially our running book, just aimed at walking and techniques, and same thing. Loads of training programs, lots of things on nutrition and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, and I think they're $25, $20.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So that's a great resource for all of you if you want to pick that up. My other question is, without getting into a lot of details in the book, but what would you recommend, John, from your experience with the walking groups in regards to progressing? Like, do you have a general rule of how much you should progress per week to avoid injuries or anything like that?
Yeah, again, it comes down to, we're trying to build a base, right? We're trying to build the foundation of our house. So the majority of your walks right, should be at a fairly easy pace, where you have a couple of walks, maybe one walk to start off with, where one's a little bit more intense and shorter in duration. If you were doing 3 times a week, and you could do your, 1 minute brisk and 1 minute stroll, and do that for a half an hour, or 20 minutes to a half an hour, and you do that for a couple of weeks, you can start to increase the length of time of the brisk walk, or you can extend the length of the entire walk, right? So you could go with 5 minutes of brisk walk and 1 minute of stroll for half an hour, or you could still do the 1-on-1s, but do that for an hour. And basically the rule of thumb is to sort of listen to your body and see what you're feeling and capable of. You still want to get that rest day. So if you want to stay active every day, maybe just have one day where it's not really intense. It's more of a nice stroll and keep your body moving so that you can remove all the metabolic wastes and all of that kind of stuff. But listen to your body, and then you'll realize really quickly that, okay, can I do my half an hour, or I can do another 10 minutes. And we always talk about, when you're not sure about the distance, do an out and back. Go halfway out and then come back. And if you realize you can go some more, then you can go back out again. Or do a circuit, but don't get yourself stuck on a 10-mile hike and then realize, oh, I was only ready for 5, So that's how I would say, yeah, listen to your body and see how it responds. And then you'll know that you can start increasing it every day or every other day. And then every week, increase the distance or increase the intensity.
Awesome. That was a great answer. Yeah, I remember recovering from my hip surgery, and that's what I did. I did a lap around the neighborhood so that I didn't get stuck too far out, but I would just increase the laps as I got stronger and built up the endurance. So that's great. Great tip. I just want to ask Mariah a quick question as well. So Mariah, with all these soft tissue techniques, those are awesome, but if somebody tries them and they're not getting better, like, when should they seek help?
So generally, when it starts to affect your daily life is when I say to reach out and get help. If you're noticing that you're rubbing it and it's just not getting better, but you're trying to rub it multiple times a day, it's on your mind. It's a at a very broad sense, just checking in with your body on a daily basis. If you feel like your neck is sore, if you go to look over your shoulder and it's a delayed motion, you might be a little sore or tight in the neck, and it's worth checking in for a day or 2 days, a week, 2 months. And when you start to notice those tight muscles, it's kind of a trickling effect, because you start to notice where you're tight everywhere. So I would start with the big ones. Your calves are tight in just about everyone. And that guy, when you start to release knots in your calves, the next day you think, gosh, my quads and my hamstrings, my upper thighs, they're a little tight too. So I would say start with your basics, get a nice quad stretch in or a calf stretch, those bent knee, kind of leaning against the wall stretches. If you start there, you truly will notice when things start to feel tight in other places.
Awesome. Great answer, Mariah. John, what do you want to, can you comment in regards to Davis's question?
Yeah, because I've had chronic low back issues from a disc injury 25 years ago. And one thing, we have gravity pulling this down, as Mariah said, and it's compressing everything. So, but one thing, especially for older patients that I used to have, is let gravity help you stretch them out. And one way you can do that with your father is on his bed, get him to sort of be on his front with his hips at the edge of the bed, and that will, the gravity will pull on the lower half of his body, and he can just sort of hold on to the top of the bed face down, and that will sort of gently give some traction there. You can do it just lying on the floor, but anything where you can use gravity to sort of help you. You don't have to invert yourself and hang upside down by your feet by any stretch of the imagination. Just letting just sort of lying partially on the bed with even just the feet or the ankles hanging off, that gravity pulling on your feet and ankles will slowly give a little bit of traction. I mean, you have to understand that as we get older, our joints just get worn down, and everybody gets it. The main thing is especially with people once they hit their 70s. Same thing with my parents are almost 80. My grandmother, she didn't start doing the Terry Fox walk until she was 65, and she did it for 25 years.
Wow,
It's staying active and just doing little bits here and there, having it with purpose. But then, like I said, if gravity is compressing us all day long, lying out and letting gravity stretch us out a little bit also can help. And it's something gentle, a little gentle traction, something that's not so violent like maybe something I would do, hang myself off the end of the bed or anything like that. But that can help too.
Might I add, just since we're here and I have a yoga mat, there is a pose that you can do on the floor really simply. It's quite comfortable. You want to stack your knees and hips, send the hips back, palms out in front of you, and then drop the chest down to the floor. And what you're going to do is kind of try and pull your butt down towards your heels and then pull the shoulders up away. And that is a version of the bed decompression, now that you say it.
Okay. That's good. I was wondering about floor exercises in general. That would be a good way to do that. Yeah, so I'll do that.
Awesome.
Great question, Davis. Yeah, and for your dad and even for yourself, a lot of our older patients with experienced backs, we usually get them to lay on their back with a heating pad and gently pull their knees to their chest. And that's another way to kind of stretch out your lower back a little bit, because that's where we tend to all sort of break down quite easily during our life. 80% of us will have a back pain at some point in our life. And our anatomy is unfortunately losing out to gravity. As our discs, break down, they kind of squish down. By about 55, the disc, instead of being like a sponge, it turns to a hockey puck. And then the compression that occurs and the loss of height now occurs in the bony vertebral body. So it starts to compress down as well. But the more stretches and things you do, like Mariah and John have talked about, the better you can maintain your spine for the rest of your life.
I'm 72 now. My dad isn't around anymore.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm just trying to prevent what he went through, I guess, and what you say. Generally, all older people get there, and I had never had lower back pain, so that I'm
Awesome.
lucky that way. So
that's good. You're one of the fortunate few, Davis. Yes. That's great. Great question. Awesome. Does anyone else have any burning questions for Mariah or John?
No, thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay, so we'll close the Q&A now, and we'll just kind of work through our close. I just want to first of all thank Mariah for presenting an awesome presentation today, and same with John for doing the weekly presentations over the last month. This has been a pleasure for us to put together, and a great learning experience for us as well. So we may be continuing this in the future as well, maybe at a different frequency though, just because the clinic is starting to get a bit busier now, so we're ramping up a little bit, and but we'll maybe see if we can twist John's arm to maybe do one maybe every month or maybe every second month. We can check in with John, and he's just a great resource for us in regards to keeping active and healthy. So I'm really excited to keep going and doing some stuff with him. And Mariah is amazing too, so I think you can appreciate the great analogies she made today. And I hope that you guys can all take this stuff to heart. And I know you guys are motivated to keep healthy, and that's really the key, is we want to keep our body moving because all the benefits are there for movement. When we're not moving and we're static, it's the exact opposite. Everything just starts breaking down. So our body was meant to move. We got to keep it moving on a daily basis. And the amazing thing is you don't have to be an Olympic athlete to get all these benefits. So there's my favorite thing, if I ever got injured and I couldn't do physiotherapy anymore, there's an enzyme in your body called lipoprotein lipase is the enzyme. And so that enzyme is responsible for actually pulling the fat out of your bloodstream and burning it in your muscle like gasoline. So the more active you are, the higher that enzyme is in your blood, and you're going to have less laying down of fat in the arteries of your brain, your heart, and all your major organs. The less active you are, then it literally just turns off, and all that blood starts to coat our arteries throughout our body and puts us at high risk for a heart attack and stroke. So let's keep active to prevent those major health issues if we can, and lead a higher quality life. Like, I think we all want to have really enjoy our golden years. You know, I've looked at my different relatives, and you know, I just think, wow, I don't want to be like my grandpas were. Like, they had some major health issues and didn't have a high quality life near the end. So let's see if we can do our preventive stuff to keep it healthy and active and really enjoy our life. I think that's what it's all about in the big picture. And that's why I love physio, because we basically are designed to keep people moving, and that's our goal and our passion in life. So I hope you found it useful. And again, I'll just probably close off by saying thank you for attending. And again, thank you, Mariah and John. And we look forward to doing more stuff in the future. And take care. And if you have any burning questions, certainly email us or contact us. The other point I just want to make, we did make this the start. I'm not sure if everyone heard or not, but we are posting all these presentations on our YouTube channel. So if you have any friends or family that you'd like to refer them to one of our presentations, Belle will be sending out the links today to everybody. So you can actually access the video. And if you want to go back and watch something that you didn't understand, you can sort of have a look at it again. And so we're looking to build out our YouTube channel now and put some more great content in that and really turn it into a big resource for everybody for, you know, health and activity, which is our sort of passion. And then again, today, if you have any feedback, just put it in the chat box. Belle and I review the chat box every week, and we like to, you know, add things in that people are interested in. So if you have any topics that you, for maybe a future presentation, please let us know, and we'll definitely look at adding those into a future presentation. All right, so
and Blair,
everybody,
I would like to invite them tonight.
Oh yes, yes. The other thing we're doing is we're bringing back up to surface our monthly workshops. Now we used to do them in house, but unfortunately due to COVID-19 we can no longer do that because we're not allowed to have groups of people. As you guys know, we're into social isolation, so we're taking it online tonight. So we're pretty excited to do our first online workshop. And so tonight's topic is shoulder. So we're going to go over some shoulder stuff. So those of you, if you have any shoulder pain, if you want to attend, it's at 7 o'clock tonight. And Belle, you can just contact Belle and she can send you the link to the workshop as well. And so we'll go over some basic anatomy, and the take-home win there will be a lot of postural stretching that we talk about to help decompress your shoulder and take some pressure off your neck indirectly as well. And I know Chris Willman's listening today, and she's always a great supporter of our workshops, and she's an awesome resource for us as well. So thanks for helping out with that, Chris. And yeah, anything else, Belle? Any other housekeeping? We're good?
Okay.
All right, so take care, guys, and we'll talk soon.
Bless
Bye-bye.
you.
Stay active.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Right.
Thank you so much. It's been
You're
wonderful.
welcome. It's our pleasure.
Welcome, guys.
All right. Bye-bye.